Thank you so much, Rob. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to stay up here. It is a real honor to be here. I was here for the first one 4 years ago, and right off the top, I want to tell you about a memory I have from that day. It was over here a little bit, and there was a nice crowd here. Not too many people showed up to get their hair cut, and then suddenly it was like the cavalry arriving in a John Wayne movie. All these guys that you see behind you, I don't know if it was the same one, but suddenly one of the fire trucks pulled up here, one pulled up here, another one pulled up here, and all these guys got off and started walking towards us. And to me, it was an incredible moment for me to see the dedication that the police and the fire department have given Terry. Right off the top, I want to say a couple of thank yous, a couple of crass comments. I want to thank X and N because they're putting me up with my lovely wife. I want to thank Rob for my new shoes. And most importantly, I want to thank a couple of people, Doug and Graham Lamb. Graham's here, Doug's still at work. They are the guys that put together the annual run every year. And even comes to shoot film for it. And I also, a big thank you to Linda for putting this together from day one. Thank you so much. And thank her team. They're an incredible bunch of volunteers. I was here earlier today, and by the way, I feel like which I'm not, the semi-drunk uncle who comes to the family gatherings and tells the same jokes every day. So I've told stories about Terry because in my mind, even though it's 30 years ago, there are many days that it was yesterday. And I was here today earlier with Linda, and we were standing over by the statue, and there was a busload of tourists here. And after a while, they wandered away, and a gentleman wandered up and spoke to us, and he was the bus driver, the tour bus driver with them. And he told us a story about how he takes tourists into northern British Columbia, and they stop at Terry Fox Mountain. And they all get out and read the plaque there, and he has an opportunity, as he did today, to talk to people from around the world and tell them the story about our hero. And I think it is incredible that we stand here on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, which is the edge of us to the rest of the world, and we're able to, through people like Rob and the statue, to firsthand show people who Terry Fox was, what he did, and from this spot we are exporting hope and inspiration, and we are instilling other countries to raise money for cancer research. One of the reasons Terry started, one of the main reasons Terry started, as you probably know, was when he got sick and he was in the hospital in Vancouver. He was too young for the adult ward and too old for the kids ward, so they put him in the kids ward. And over the time that he had treatment there, he watched young people fight this disease. He loved children, and it inspired him and it drove him in his run. But at the same time, he was an incredibly... during the run, during the day, he was focused, he was intense. At the end of the day, he was the funniest, nicest man you'd ever want to meet. My kids had an opportunity to travel with us. They were 8 and 9 at the time, and in this one occasion, north of Sault Ste. Marie, we had left the Sault, and when you get up north of the Sault, there's very few places to stay, and that night he was going to stay in a little motel, so there wasn't a room enough for all of us. There was Daryl, his brother, and Doug, and the police that traveled with us, and one of the Cancer Society people. And so we decided to all drive back into the Sault, and we left Doug and Terry in the motel. We got back into the Sault about 45 minutes later, and we unload all the vans and the cars, and I can't find my 8-year-old son. Nobody knows where he is. So I call back up to the hotel, and Doug comes to the phone, and I said, "Have you seen Patrick?" And he said, "Yeah, what happened is Terry wanted to go fishing with him, so he hid him under his bed until you guys left. And after you guys drove away, they've gone fishing." the kids along the way, and one of the things that amazed me about Terry was not just the physical accomplishment that he achieved each day by running a marathon, but all the other things that he had to carry with him. One time east of Toronto, at a rest stop in the middle of the afternoon, and I can remember how hot it was, and there was a big crowd around, and it was, you know, Terry's having his orange juice and his drink, and he always got out and talked to the people. He loved to talk to the people. He loved to just commiserate with them and get down. And this woman came up to him, and you may have seen, but it does not capture what happened. This woman walked up to Terry and hugged him and stepped back, and she said, "Thank you so much. You're running for my little boy." And he said, "Oh, where is he?" And she said, he passed away last week. Terry talked to her. Personally, myself, it was one of the heaviest things that happened along the run. I had to walk away. I actually got in the car and drove away for about 10 minutes. Terry couldn't drive away. He couldn't walk away. He had to go back in that road and with him carry all the hopes and the dreams of the people that he spoke to and all of their pain. And that's one of the amazing things I find with one of the accomplishments that people don't realize. The last thing that Terry would have ever wanted is a statue or a mountain or a street named after him. He was concerned that people would put him on a pedestal and forget why he was running. But he realized that the statues, the mountains, the schools, the streets, and all of the honors that were you know the word I'm trying to say. Bestowed, thank you. Thank you, Silken. Are vehicles to carry on his story and to carry on the inspiration for people to raise money to find a cure to this disease. He was a very humble human being, and I can remember in the ambulance when he got sick in Thunder Bay, as we were driving to the airport, and there was Mom and Dad and myself and a reporter from the Globe and Mail, and his dad was going on about how unfair it was that the disease had come back. And Terry was laying in the stretcher, and he just looked up at his dad and he said, "No, it's not unfair." He said, "I'm just like anybody else. Anybody else can get this disease." And there was a long pause, and then he said, "Maybe now people will understand why I was doing this." And he thought at that time that people had lost focus on what the run was all about. And he knew that Canadians now were going to have to watch to fight this disease. And if you've ever had anyone in your family who've had this disease and you watch them fight it, you realize the battle that it is. And he knew that people were going to understand why he was running. Earlier today, I was standing up under the tree trying to figure out what I was going to say today. And I was quite inspired by watching all of this go down. I have a great admiration for the teachers of this country who have carried Terry's message on to generation after generation. And I salute them. I have so many stories I could tell. One of them, by the way, I'm going to end with two things. One was, very rarely did Terry ever talk about the end of the run. In his journal, he had figured out that he was hoping to get home by December the 8th. And when I first met him, and by the way, he had never been out of British Columbia except for once to go to a wheelchair basketball game in Toronto. So I don't think he really had a concept of what a challenge he had undertaken. And so when I met him in New Brunswick, I said, we're looking at a map of Ontario, which is a fair bit bigger than BC, which he was used to, and he pointed to Niagara Falls, and then to Windsor, and then to Sarnia. And he said, well, I want to run down to all those places. And I said, when do you want to get home? And I had to explain to them that an inch on this map is a bigger inch on that map. And he wanted everyone to realize that he had covered every step of the way. The odd time that we did talk about it, he had plans to first run into Stanley Park, then he was going to get on the ferry, he was then going to run down this street, he was going to go there, and then he was going to run to Port Renfrew. because he figured that was the end. They couldn't run any further. I almost brought up the Queen Charlotte Islands, but I didn't. Today, Terry's legacy lives on here, right now, in this place, and around the world. I started to say earlier when I was up under the tree, I was watching the choir warm up, and I was watching all the folks mingling around and all the action, the flags getting up, and Linda was running around. And one of my jobs, how it would work during the run, is one of us would always go ahead to the next town, and which was only 26 miles away, and you'd be with that group, and it was anywhere from the Catholic Women's League to the Ladies Association to the Kiwanis or Lions Club in each of these tiny little towns along the route, who put together the reception for Terry. And I was standing back there, and it was exactly like it was 30 years ago. The excitement, the community involvement, the fun, the smiles, the laughters, and I was almost waiting for him to run down the street. And he is still running, and I thank you for making that possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We have a special presentation here. Got a bouquet of flowers for you from one of Terry's cousins, Darren Wark.